You guys, it's June 11th and it's very late. But I just wanted to make a video, no fancy camera or fancy lighting or fancy clothes or hair. Just kind of talk for a little bit because I was sent away a year ago today. And that's kind of a lot to process because it seems like it feels like it happened so fast. It seems just kind of like just this one chunk of time. And it didn't really last 6 months. It lasted 10 years. And it also lasted a week at the same time. And yet that was 6 months of my life. And it's hard to believe that that amount of time that you could have really just been living your life. And it's weird to think about how I went into it one person, I came out another person. And I've not really talked about it on my channel before. I mean, the last time I did talk about it, I had a pretty positive opinion of my experience. And that's no longer the case. And I know it's not rational or anything. But a little part of me is always saying you could go back. Your parents could send you back, and they have given me no reason to think this at all. But how many other parents said that they're not going to send their kid back, and then they do? And that's the little part of my brain speaking, right? I didn't leave the house today because this is my safe space. My room is my safe space, and I spent so long away from my safe space that today, on this very specific and horrible day, I just wanted to be in this safe space, right? And it isn't an inherently horrible day, right? I mean, the days what you make it. So I tried to do things that I loved. I ate a lot of salsa and chips. I took a walk, took a shower. But it's I try to remind myself that time is a arbitrary thing that humans use to be able to describe time and where they are in time and what has happened in the past, when it happened. And yet we're conditioned to think that time is everything our whole lives. You start school at 8 o'clock, school ends at 3:30, you go to bed at 9 o'clock. It's time is everything. It dictates every single aspect of our lives. So, you know, June 11th sucks because it's gonna forever be the day that I went away and I came back a different person. And I try to think about what would have been different if I hadn't gone away, right? You know, what what changes would have just happened naturally? What changes happened just because I was away from home, not necessarily because I was in a therapeutic environment? But the the worst part about it is that when I was in wilderness, I hate that word. And when I was at my therapeutic boarding school, I was fine. And I had a certain mindset which just makes me want to vomit now. That when people would say, "Oh, this whole thing, like, it sucks and it's they didn't say this is BS." I thought, "Oh, well, you'll be grateful for it later. You'll come out of this better and you'll be grateful for your therapy." And it was so wrong. It was so wrong because now I have nightmares multiple times a week about being sent back to wilderness or being there again. And the terror that I feel in those nightmares are makes me wish that I can realize when I'm dreaming and when I'm not. And I know I'm not dreaming right now. I'm not crazy. I hope. I'm not crazy. But they just remind me. I'd rather put it all behind me and just go forward with my life, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a high school kid. I'm gonna go into my sophomore year, and it's gonna be less COVID-y. Obviously, COVID is still a thing. Um, I got my second vaccination almost a week ago, and things are slowly going back to normal, and I just want to live a normal high school experience. But these nightmares and the thoughts in the back of my head, they're just always there. And I think it's messed up that the therapy that you went to is the cause that you need therapy for your therapy. That's just it's messed up. And it makes me wonder about all those people that work in those kinds of places. The staff were usually fine, and the guides in wilderness were usually fine, but the therapists, it's just a messed up system because they control when you're there. They control every aspect of your life, especially in wilderness. I had to ask my therapist for a pencil. We weren't even allowed to have pencils. It strips away everything that you are. And all of us like to say, "Oh, well, I'm not materialistic. I don't love my possessions so much that I couldn't live without them, right?" And I don't need my pop figures, but they're nice to look at. And I don't mean it just like that, but if you look around your room and you look at what you decorated it with, it has little pieces of who you are, right? What your wardrobe is. It's not it's not that I need my possessions to survive. It's that they make me feel human. And when you have that all stripped away, you feel subhuman. And that's essentially what happened to me for 2.5 months. Is I was not treated like a human being. And I went to a place that was a lot better than a lot of other ones. I mean, it was still, we had to backpack, and it was still really, really horrible. But I had to poop in a bag for 2 months, like a dog. And just the thought of that, and the thought of being helpless and not being treated like a human being, it's terrifying. They had to, every time that you went to the bathroom, they had to see a part of you. There were people essentially, I couldn't see anything, but there were people essentially watching you poop. And again, the thought of going back to that, and the thought that people are still doing that right now, it's not a good thought. And so this day, while I tried to make it a good day, it's just gonna be tainted forever. And it's also knowing that from here on out, for 6 months now, I'm going to be thinking, because that's just kind of how my mind works. A year ago today, I was here. I was in Utah, or I was in the therapeutic boarding school. Given therapeutic boarding school wasn't as bad, but there was still, imagine a children's hospital. And I hate to word it like that, but it's painted all these bright colors, and there's probably flowers on the walls or something like that. But it's just all these fun colors masking up what is really a very sad place. And that's essentially what it was. Some people were happy, but even there, you're still helpless. You can't leave. No matter how much they try, in those places, whether it's by a little or whether it's by a lot, you're not quite human anymore. And just the times in those places where I'd be feeling fine, and then I would be reminded, for instance, sometimes they would take us out to Starbucks or McDonald's or something like that. And I would order a drink, and they would ask if they could get it decaf. And I'm allowed to have caffeine. I don't drink coffee just because I don't like it. But you know, I'll have a Coke at like 8 o'clock at night. Coca-Cola, not cocaine. My parents even signed something that said they were fine with me having caffeine. But if that restaurant didn't offer the thing without caffeine, I couldn't have it. I don't know why, but it's just rules like that that aren't enacted for any good reason, I want to say. It's more they have a mentality of nobody can be trusted. And just that, the not given a chance to even prove, hey, yeah, I can handle caffeine before they rule it out completely. Or even in the bathrooms, and I didn't know this till later in my stay when we were talking about interior design and stuff because the place looked kind of gloomy. They were not allowed to put any glass in the bathrooms. And just a rule like that was not it wasn't a good feeling, because if you are treated like you're something less than you are, I almost got to a point where it's like, why should I even try to be the best that I can be if they're always going to see me as a little bit less? And then there's comes the issues when you put a bunch of kids that have issues with a bunch of other kids that have issues. That's just an inherently toxic environment. When people with insecurities meet other people with insecurities, those insecurities get made fun of, and then they're insecure, so they lash out. And it was, especially the boarding school, was so toxic. And that's why I moved groups so many times when I was in wilderness, because people were just toxic. And then there was even this case of there's this one student at the boarding school where he it was basically a sexual assault case, and I was not a victim, thank God. Um, but it was a bunch of different people, a bunch of different victims, I mean. And for something like that to happen in a place that's supposed to help you is, I mean, it's that's what happens when you put a bunch of kids with issues with a bunch of other kids that have issues. And I'm not gonna lie and say that I have a better alternative or something like that. But if any parent out there it would somehow come across this video or something like that, I would beg you to try anything and everything else before sending your kid away, because it changes you. And maybe in some good ways, but for me it was a lot of bad ways. And now that's something that I'm gonna have to live with for at least a very long time. What treatment taught to me was to be compliant. It taught me that no matter what, you just need to take what you're given and not say a word about it. Even if someone is really, really, really to you, you can't say a word. And you just need to live with it, deal with it, and be fine with it. And it really taught me that I shouldn't stand up for myself. And it tries to put on this facade of you matter, you know. You matter to us, anyways. But when it gets down to it, you can't enact any real change. If someone is really, really to you, they're just gonna say, oh, well, they have their own issues. Which, of course, they do. They're there. But that doesn't mean that you should have to also deal with their issues when you're trying to deal with your own. You know, nobody is ever, probably, other than a serial killer, gonna make me hike until 2:30 in the morning. But you know what? That's what I had to do. And what was I gonna say afterwards? Other than, oh, it's fine, I understand. Because that's what I had to say. I couldn't say that was inhumane. I couldn't say we were cold and we were hungry. I couldn't say that this one person peed their pants because of it. Why? You should have never had us do that. No. Because that would have gone back to my therapist. And the all-encompassing fear of, am I going to stay longer? I couldn't say anything. So I just had to say, it's okay, and move on. And that's what I did. And, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm fine now, but that's just what I had to do. Anyways, that's the end of the video, I think. Yeah, that's basically it. This is probably going to be very scarcely edited, so sorry if it's boring. It's really just kind of me getting my thoughts out there, but June 11th is kind of a meh day.